Welcome everybody to the Life, Death and Happiness podcast. This is all about real talks with real people from all around the globe. In each episode, I will sit down and talk with a friend about how it is to live with an incurable disease or maybe even a terminal illness. And let me get this straight while we're at it. This is all about celebrating life. My name is Daniel Cole and I'm your host. With me today, I have Amy from Massachusetts. And Amy, can you tell us a little about yourself?
I am 28 years old. And right now I currently work as a nanny, and I am 16 years post bone marrow transplant survivor.
Okay, so you have had the bone marrow transplant, yeah. Can you talk briefly about, I know what Fanconi Anemia is because I pretty much suffered from myself, but how about you, can you talk a little about what is Fanconi Anemia and what has it meant to you so far?
Well, I'll give the generic version. Basically, Fanconi Anemia is a rare genetic blood disorder that leads to bone marrow failure, which means your bone marrow produces all your blood that you need in your body to survive. And if you have FA, your bone marrow actually has a limited amount of all those cells to the point where it will eventually decline. And if you don't have any more blood cells, then your body can't keep on working.
Yeah, it's difficult to describe something like that in a few words. I know that. Definitely. But you have all people, just to the listeners who don't know, everybody who has FA is something you're born with. It's not something you can get somewhere down the line. You're maybe not aware of it before later in life. Maybe you won't get the diagnosis before you're 5 or 10 or maybe even 30 years old. But it's something we have from we are born, right? So I assume now I've been talking to you a few times and I have been following you on Facebook and I know that you seem to live a almost normal life. But how was it to grow up with knowing you had FA?
So I got diagnosed when I was 4.5 years old. And even at that young age, there is a point where I could understand that my life was different from my other friends, just because of my other friends wouldn't go to the doctors, wouldn't go to the hospital to see their doctors, and they wouldn't not be allowed to do something. And I'm very observant, and growing up, I was able to understand a lot what was going on with me, especially with getting the blood draws done and the shots to help boost my bone marrow produce blood cells. So it was kind of a struggle. I kept it a secret for a long time, and I only told 2 of my friends until I was about 10 years old. When I was 10 years old, that's when I told everybody that I had FA because I was going to go to Minnesota to have my bone marrow transplant. And so growing up,
you kind of had to tell.
Yeah, so growing up was hard just because I would get the shots 3 days a week, and I wasn't able to play sports like all my friends would do, and I was always tired, and if someone had a cold, that would make me have a cold times 1,000. So it was hard to keep up with my friends and keep up with school, and also trying to keep up the whole secret that I am normal when in actuality I was not.
I kind of feel there because I was also diagnosed when I was 5 and had some of the same issues. I was transplanted when I was 10, or actually when I was 9. So I totally follow you about kind of living a double life in such a young age, because you can't really share these kind of things with normal school friends that is maybe 6 or 7 years old. It's a very very strange world to be in such a young age.
Yeah. Well, I used to tell my parents that if they told anybody outside of my immediate family and my grandmother that I would, it was very much leading a double life.
Did this affect you socially in school more than normally? Did you still, was you still able to connect to the other kids even though you had to keep these secrets?
Yeah, I mean, so my parents, they were, I think how they went about telling me about the diagnosis and taking in all of the considerations from what the doctor said I couldn't and could do. They really wanted me to live as normal as possible, and not everything on the do not do list my parents followed. It was more of kind of figuring out what my body would allow me to do at that time. And I would go to amusement parks with my friends. I would ride my bike. One of my mom's and my grandmother's favorite stories of me is when I was 7. I was out one day. It was a beautiful day out. I was in my driveway, and my mom was talking to my grandmother in the house. I took my bike and started pedaling, and my grandmother opened the front door and said, "Amy, what do you think you're doing?" And I said, "I'm riding my bike." And I had long blonde hair down past my butt, and I flipped it with my helmet. And I looked at my grandmother and said, "Well, just don't tell the doctors," and then rode off. And that's really how I just kept on going about living, is just trying to find that the disease, a lot of times people feel the disease controls you. I try to think of it as you control a disease of how it affects you. And
I get that, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I would go to play dates. I would go to like field trips and all that stuff. It was very strange now that you say about living a double life, because I just kind of blocked all that medical stuff out from actually talking to any of my friends about it, except for one friend. Her name was Sarah, and for every year you have to get a bone marrow biopsy where they take a little piece of your bone marrow and see how your bone marrow is looking and how much it's declining, basically, I guess, is really what it is.
Oh, you gotta love that one, right?
Yeah. So I, because you can't eat because you go under anesthesia, I would always say I want to go out and have a big dinner. So my friend Sarah and my friend Colin, those were the only 2 friends that knew about me. But Sarah and we would always go out to dinner the night before I would get the biopsy done. And that was kind of the only really type of way that I connected with any of my friends on that type of level for the medicalness. Everything else, I was connecting with them pretty much fine. I kind of blamed my parents for not allowing me to do any contact sports. So that kind of I was able to play off that a lot. But everything else, I was very social, always wanting to be out where everyone else is and try and do what everyone else is doing.
I gotta be curious here, because now that you talk about this, I'm thinking about my own time back then.
Yeah.
And I don't know why it's so strange, but I keep remembering that my normal days would be 4 days at school like everybody else. Then on Friday in the morning, I would go in to get blood samples done. And then within the next 5 or 6 hours, we would get the results. And the result either meant that I could just stay home that weekend, or I would go have a blood transfusion. So that was kind of a weird thing. But as a kid, I mean, you know how we are as kids. Yeah. We still try to get the best out of it. So I actually tried to, I wouldn't call it blackmail, but it was very, very close to. So I used to actually get my parents to buy we had the local Donald Duck magazine back then. I was like, oh, but if I have blood samples, I hate it. So it started with that. And then later on, I got them to buy me all sorts of candy when I went in for the blood transfusion. And I thought, I mean, I was a kid. I shouldn't have liked this, but to me it was almost like a win-win, because I knew that when I was at the hospital, I would get the candy and I could sit down. They had this room where they had an old Atari console you could sit and play by when you were at the hospital. So I mean, even as a kid, we have a tendency to find the best in the situation.
Oh, yeah, no, definitely. I did pretty much the same thing that you did. I had a at-home nurse that came once a week to take my blood, and we had a little basket where I could pick out either candy or a toy from every time. And and when I would have to go in for the blood work into Boston or have the biopsy done, I would say, well, if I have to do this, then I really want to have to be able to do this. So it was that win-win type of situation that we as young children were very able to manipulate to benefit us. And that's how I was able to get my ears pierced and get my belly button pierced, was just doing that.
That's actually very funny.
Yeah.
But you got your bone marrow transplantation. Do you want to talk a little about that situation? Or?
Sure. I'm an open book, so.
Perfect.
So when I was 10 years old, I could notice that stuff was I was going to the doctors more frequently, and I was getting tired way more than usual, and I was covered with bruises way more than usual. So I knew something was up. And then that following year, when I was 11, we sat down with the doctors, and the doctors basically said that either I can go to transplant in a couple months or I can wait after the summer. And I remember looking at the doctors and my parents and saying, well, I want my summer. And that's when I made that decision in 5th grade. I wrote out a book all about FA and asked to present it to my class because, and this is...
Oh, that's pretty hardcore.
Well, yeah.
That's pretty cool in that age.
Well, what was weird is that, again, I kept this a secret from literally everybody, except the parents all knew because my parents had to send that letter. If your child is sick, you need to inform. But all the children had no idea. And I was kind of, at that age, unfortunately, I've had to deal with seeing other FA kids pass away. And I felt like if I didn't leave an explanation to all my friends, that I would regret it and they would not understand why didn't she tell us. So I decided to just present the book and take any questions from the kids and kind of share my story and let them know that I have to go away for a year in September and get a serious bone marrow transplant done. And I would have to drive all the way to Minnesota to have it done. And that's sort of the first steps of really understanding that, wow, okay, this is real. I'm going to transplant. This is happening. And my class absolutely was the best. They cheered for me. I was so afraid that they were going to like make me the sick girl. And I did not want that title at all. I didn't want to be treated different. And it wasn't like that at all. Everyone was really supportive. And they even made a blanket where all of my classmates drew a picture and they were able to sew it onto a blanket, which was really cool. And my town did a fundraiser for me and my parents, which was...
Oh, that's awesome.
Which was like...
Did they really do that?
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, we had little caps made that said Friends for Life. And it was really cool just to have that support. And I made that summer the best summer it could be, because in my head, even at such a young age, I knew that my survival rate was not good. So
it wasn't for anybody back then.
no,
Back then it was not. There was a lot of people we actually lost to the bone marrow transplantation.
Yeah, no, it was scary, and I knew that, and I even wanted to know everything that was going to happen to me. So I was very observant and involved in all of the procedures and steps. And when it was time to say goodbye to my friends and my family that were around me, it was really hard. But my parents, my mom and dad, were both able to be with me, and we drove out to Minneapolis, Minnesota, and we made some stops along the way just to kind of make it fun. And I'll always remember that I could feel a change about my body once we sort of started moving in this magenta minivan that was awful. And it was a very surreal moment for me. And when I went to the hospital to kind of get all of that stuff ready for me to actually be admitted into the hospital, it was really scary, and it was sad. And of course, a lot of doctors and nurses just talking to me and getting more blood work done and IVs everywhere. And up until this moment, I never had a blood transfusion, which I'm very, very lucky and fortunate that I always gambled. So the nurses at home, when I would go into Boston, they would say, Amy, we should just do an IV and take blood from your hand rather than have to stick you twice if your numbers are low. And I would always say, oh, no, my numbers are fine. It's fine. And luckily, every time I would get blood work done, I would not need a blood transfusion. So that was something different.
Oh, that's...
Yeah.
Yeah, that is something. I mean, the last year up until I got my BMT, I read in my old journals that they wanted to proceed because I had more than 30 transfusions the last year.
Yeah, so it was a lot different because I never had to endure that before. So it was very crazy, and getting the Hickman line in and the port in, it was all very, very fast. And you really, at that moment, I think I realized that, okay, this is life or death. Like, I have to keep fighting the fight and keep on being spunky no matter what. And that's kind of what I did. I was very lucky, and I was able to get videos to watch during the daytime in my hospital room. And I was able to get pretty much any food I wanted, which was really cool, until one of the drugs that they give you, and along with like total body radiation, you're kind of, after that, you're confined into your hospital room. You're not really allowed to go outside your room unless you wear a mask. And I hated to wear the mask.
Oh, definitely.
And then slowly but surely, my hair fell out, and it was really sad because I was very well known as the Amy with the long blonde hair, and seeing my hair fall, really scary. But seeing my hair fall out was really sad, and to the point where we actually had one of the nurses come in and buzz off the remaining
How did your parents respond to that part when your hair fell out?
So my dad has always been very strong. Whenever I would have to go under any type of procedure, my dad would always be there. I would kiss my mom, and then my dad would go all the way until no parents were allowed. But he's always been wicked strong. My mom has always been really strong, but I mean, at that time, like I could see the tears in her eyes, and I could see her because that's just, I mean, I can't even think about watching, like, if I had my own child and have to see them know that, like, their hair is falling out.
It must be terrible. It must be so terrible because there's nothing they can do.
No, and
They can just be there.
Yeah, that's really all they could do, and then just kind of, they always tried to make me laugh and have me watch home videos to kind of feel like I was back home. And I, of course, with a lot of the drugs that come with transplant, the radiation basically brings you to your deathbed. And then all the steroids and the chemo just do a toll on your body. And I was starting to, like, get much fatter in my whole entire body just from that. And I started to not look like myself. And that was really scary for me to watch the transition of how these drugs have made my body look and feel, because I was so weak. And at a point, I even lost all of my taste buds. I don't know if you lost your taste buds.
I can't remember so much of the taste buds because I'm even older than you are when it comes to this. So I was actually in a glass box.
Oh, okay.
A big one. Still, there was room for, like, there would have been room for maybe 4 beds, but it was only me in there. Mm-hmm. But it was so strange because people could watch me from everywhere all the time. Oh. So I never felt like I was alone. And if I wanted something to eat, and of course I had to eat, it had to either go into the oven for 2 hours before, or it had to come from the hospital kitchen. So I don't know about my taste buds, but I tried different kind of candy and stuff to keep my mood up, but they would have to go to the oven for 2 hours first. So you can imagine how wine gums or licorice was after 2 hours. It was so disgusting. So actually, I stopped eating most of the time. Not just candy, but I just thought all of it was disgusting. I couldn't really keep it down.
Yeah, all the medicines, they just made me lose my taste buds and the food that I once was loving to eat, because I was allowed to eat pretty much any type of food. But the nurses were the people that were allowed into my room, and my parents, and that was kind of it. But if they had a cold, they would have to wear the mask. But I never had any of those type of food restrictions that you had. So it was very weird how one day I was drinking. I used to be obsessed with drinking Mountain Dew because it had so much caffeine that it would give me the energy I needed. And I will always remember having a can of Mountain Dew in my hand and taking a sip of it in my hospital bed. And literally I just looked up at my dad and just started to, like, cry because I could not taste the Mountain Dew. And that was kind of the beginning where my parents were getting me, like, the spiciest fries ever just because I was trying to taste something.
Aww.
And it does get to that point, I think, with everyone that goes through transplant, at least back when we were in transplant, where you just don't want to eat. And then at that point, they give you the IV nutrition, which I had, and that would make you feel full, like you've had a 4-course meal. And then you would be having the nurses and, of course, your parents say, okay, Amy, eat some more. But like I was saying, the IV nutrition makes you feel completely full inside. But yet everybody wants you to eat actual food and drink actual types of drinks. And it was really hard for me to be able to do that because I was not hungry and I was feeling like I ate everything in the world. And I can always remember I them saying, well, you're going to have to get a feeding tube if that's the way you're going to play it. And I did not want that at all.
Oh,
and,
no. I totally
yeah.
get that. You want to avoid that at all costs, especially as a child.
Yeah. And I will always remember my mother one day when I was refusing to eat. She looked over and she swore and she said, "Amy, I don't think you want to have that feeding tube, so eat the fucking food now." And it was kind of like those little moments where my parents have always been great to try to make as much humor as possible throughout anything that's negative. So any type of like little humorous things to add or sarcastic comments, it just brought me back to like, okay, I'm back to normalcy, even if it is for like a second. But
it does help a lot, definitely.
Yeah, but transplant was hard because you kind of have to, if you're someone that likes to be in control, you can't be in control of what is going on with you because you have nurses coming every so-and-so hours. And I didn't do well with that. I actually tried not to sleep for a long period of time. I forget the actual number of days, but I didn't sleep for quite a few. And because I was wanting to make sure that the nurses did everything correctly. And,
okay, but I'm laughing. It's really not fun, but I do get it because even though you were a child, and I felt the same back then, you are so much in control of what's happening inside your body. You almost know exactly what's happening all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I just say I fully get that because I've been thinking some of the same. Where parents were like, but they're the doctors, but I like, it's my body. I mean, that comes from a 9-year-old kid or a 10-year-old kid. It's not normal outside in society, but for people who's through something like this, it gets normal.
It was, and finally the nurses caught on that I was fake sleeping. And they now, because I've been up for so many hours and not sleeping, that they were giving me IV Benadryl, because Benadryl knocks me out literally within like 2 to 5 minutes. So they would have to do that at nighttime.
Mean tricks.
I know. But it was little things like that. Just you have to kind of let your body just do its thing and really have hope that everyone that's taking care of you is taking care of you. And that was like really hard for me to do, especially because one of the days I actually locked myself into the bathroom.
You did?
Because they give you private bathrooms in your room. And I was knowing that I was losing control because I was getting put to sleep basically every night. And I was feeling awful from all the drugs. I was basically on my deathbed because my body's getting ready for that new bone marrow to come in. And it was a change in the nurse's shift. And I knew they were going to do my afternoon vitals. My mom had just left because my mom and dad would sleep in my room with me. They would take 24-hour shifts. So she just left a 24-hour shift, and my dad just came on. And I said, "Dad, I have to go potty." So he helped me out of the bed. I went into the bathroom. I closed the door, saw the lock, and I just pushed it. And I refused to come out because the nurses were coming in to do their vitals on me and give me my medicine. And they were knocking and banging on the door. My dad was banging on the door, trying to get me out. Dr. Wagner, who's like the head, and Dr. McMillan, who was my actual bone marrow transplant doctor, they both were in the room trying to get me out of the bathroom.
Oh, you got their attention.
What?
You got their attention.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
I don't think that they've had that type of situation within the kids unit. I just don't think that had happened before. And then they started asking, like, what can we do to make you come out of the bathroom? And I said, well, get my mom, because I knew she just left. So I knew that would be like, not like they wouldn't be able to get her to come back. In my head, that's what I thought. But no, they ended up having to like break down the door, and it was not. They were very mad at me, but they were also very understanding, because Dr. Wagner, he speaks at Camp Sunshine for FA week, where FA families can come for a week and they can listen to doctors and researchers all about FA while the kids have like a day camp experience. And Dr. Wagner would always be there. So he kind of knew me for a few years, and he just looked at my dad and just said, Mike, she's knowing that she's lost all control over everything that's happening to her. This is what she's realizing, and this is like her breaking point. That's what's happening. And it was so true. That was my breaking point, because once they were forcing me to go to bed by making me fall asleep, I really had nothing else that I could control over. So
you tried
so that was
to grab out, to just do something, just to have a little control.
Yeah,
I fully get that. Yeah, I mean, what else can you do?
Yeah,
You were a child. I mean, maybe not lock yourself in, but still, what, you didn't have so many other things where you couldn't. What else should you do? You couldn't, run away or anything.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I was too weak. So, I mean, it was like little moments like that was a struggle, and and then everyone kind of, I think, builds up this whole concept of a bone marrow transplant being like this big procedure that happens, when it is a big procedure, but not in the way that people have that concept, because it's literally an IV bag, and that's your donor's bone piece of part of their bone marrow, and it's in an IV bag. They brought it to me. They showed it. They kind of sang the whole "Happy Birthday" song.
Oh, they do
it's
that?
like a rebirth.
Okay, that's kind of cool.
Yeah. Well, my nurses, they said, well, basically, it's kind of because if I didn't have this, then I can't be alive, because my bone marrow was literally like down to like there was no bone marrow, and this one had to come in, and they were faking my body to think that my body always had this type of marrow. So that's why they call it like a rebirth almost, and your second birthday is what we call it. And yeah, they sang little happy birthday. And they hooked it up to me, and it was kind of at that point, you think almost, well, at least I did. I thought that I was going to start feeling like amazing. After. And no, it's a complete waiting game, because you have to wait for your body to accept this new foreign thing, and have your body not know that it's foreign and know that it's, and kind of accept it as, oh yeah, this is what we have. This is our bone marrow. This is it. And that was really tough for the whole waiting game, because you were still feeling like shit. I was still feeling like shit, at least. And then you have to deal with, okay, well, you've been in the hospital for this long, and you can catch other things just from being in the hospital, just because you can't 100% clean out any germs. So it was hard to be able to, that you wanted your blood to hit those level marks to be able to get out of the hospital.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and so
how did that go for you? How long was you in the hospital for the BMT before they actually let you out?
So I know I was in there. I think I was in there either 2 or 3 months.
Oh, that's a long time, yeah.
Straight.
Whoa.
Yeah. I want to say that was straight. And then I was able to go out and do some day trips. But then I would have to come back to the hospital. And then I got released and was able to go back to the apartment. And they had this really cool, awesome backpack that had all my IV nutrition and all of that good stuff, and a huge pile of pills that you have to take. And it was awesome because at that point I was like, "Ooh, okay, I'm like out of the hospital. Like this is gonna be good. This is gonna be good." And then it's like, shoot, all my pills that was literally for IV meds are now in pill form.
That's a lot,
That's a lot. And it was a lot because it was almost like every 4 hours I had to take like 7 or 8 giant horse pills. And I can remember fighting with my parents, and to the point of like my mom and dad just kind of screaming back and forth, being like, "Amy, you have to take this. Like, you need to take these pills if you want to live. Like, come on." And it was hard to be able to do all that. And then sleeping was hard because you would have to leave that backpack on or leave it really close to. And I was always afraid that something was that if I moved a certain way, the needle's going to come out and everything will go.
But it's also
haywire.
It's a lot to take in when you're a kid. I mean, as you mentioned, as soon as you get out, you think that now everything is good, everything is fine. Then comes this period of time where you have all the pills and there's a lot of stuff. And as soon as that is over, you start to think about GVHD. I mean, there's so many. There keep being something more.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was, I mean, I still had to be like an outpatient and go in. And unfortunately, if you have a fever, you're admitted back into the hospital right away. And of course, just from being outside the hospital environment, I got a fever. And I remember having to be back into the hospital. And I think I was in the hospital on my birthday, and I was so mad that I was like in the hospital. And then for Halloween, I was stuck in the hospital, and it was just awful.
Now that I think about it,
and then
please continue.
finally, But now that I think about it, it was hard because it was almost to the point where I didn't want to have my temperature taken because I didn't want it, because I knew even if it's like a little degree higher, but if it's in that zone, that's a fever, that's an automatic, you're in the hospital. And it was hard to try to, you can't gamble with that.
But I remember when I was through my bone marrow transplantation, or I was close to, and they wouldn't let me out. As I mentioned, I was in a glass box back then with a bigger opening in one end. And we were getting near Christmas. And I started to feel a lot better. I got my bone marrow on the 13th of November. So more than a month later, we started to get closer to Christmas. And I was like, I'm not staying in here for Christmas. And my parents was like, but you really have to. And the doctors came in and talked to me like, but we just take it day by day. Maybe you will make it home for Christmas. Maybe you won't. But we just want to make sure you're okay when you leave here. And I was looking at my mom one day and I was like, but you know what? Sooner or later, you have to sleep. And when you sleep, I can run out of here.
Yeah.
She later told me she was like terrified to sleep. She almost didn't sleep for a few days in the coming days because she was so afraid I would do it, because like, when you least expect it, I'm out of here, because I didn't want to be there on Christmas at all. I mean, it was not really fair to her, but what can you do? You're a kid.
Exactly. And I remember I was in the apartment in December, and I wanted to make it home for Christmas. And I'll always remember I had to get readmitted back into the hospital because I got shingles. And I was so upset that I just had another thing at me. That I think like that type of mentality I just kept on telling my body, like, we're getting rid of this. We're getting healthy. We're getting healthy, to the point where finally, like a week before it was going to be Christmas, the doctors said that I could go and go back home and not go back to the apartment in Minnesota, but go home to Massachusetts. And yes, I was so thrilled. My parents were so happy. The only bummer is that you kind of forget that you kind of have like a security blanket when you're so close to the hospital that you're monitored at. And also when you're so kind of always knowing that, okay, well, I have this appointment this day, this appointment that day, and all of that. And now it's kind of like, okay, well, you're going now all the way back home. And that's just a whole nother like adventure. And finally we were driving and we made it home Christmas Eve. And which I was like so happy. And I'll always remember that as we were turning onto my street and into my driveway, the Ozzy Osbourne song, "Mama, I'm Coming Home," came on the radio just at that point. And it was kind of like, I'm getting goosebumps right now, but
it's something like that will always be with you.
Yes, because that's just so, like, that's the perfect song. "Mama, I'm Coming Home." Perfect song for coming back to home. But yeah, no, transplant, like, people think it's just like a little bit of time, but I mean, there's a lot of after the transplant that you have to deal with. And I wasn't myself until probably like 2 years after transplant. Honestly.
But how could you be? I mean, you've been away from your family, your friends, and the quote-unquote normal world for such a long time. I mean, you're in this, I don't know what you want to call it, this special world. You're in a different plane of this. I mean, it's like a different universe you're in.
Yeah.
So getting back and get out and being social again. And, I mean, I don't know how you felt, but I felt when I went back that life had just moved on for all my friends. Even though they were glad to see me and I was back in, still they were still watching the same cartoons and they had the same problems at school and stuff like that. But my world had just changed. It was like I have become maybe 5 years older, maybe 10 years older in such a short amount of time. I don't know how you felt about that.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, it was really hard for me because I turned 12 in the hospital, and I was missing all of 6th grade. And that's kind of the big age group where you kind of make your cliques, your groups, and that kind of follows you throughout middle school and high school. And I never had that. And it was really hard to kind of figure out where my place was.
Oh, yeah.
I was friendly with a lot of people, and people were nice to me, but I never got that solid connection of a group of people that were like my core friends. It was always just a couple individuals that I would love to hang out with all the time and would go over their houses and stuff like that, but it was never like a group. And I came back into basically the whole social life of a teenager in 7th grade. And it was hard because the school wanted me to redo 6th grade.
Ah.
Because I really did not learn anything from the tutors that the hospital provides you with and that the state provides you with.
I
when you're
get
back
that, but that's
home.
just so cruel when you come back and you
And
really start to, you try to start over again. And then you
yeah,
also get this,
and
okay, you have to actually, yeah.
yeah, and my parents were agreeing that academically that is a good idea and a better idea, but emotionally and socially it's gonna not be the best. And I agreed with that. I wanted to stay with my grade. I didn't want to have to redo a whole year. I just wanted to keep going forward, and and I did. And looking back on it, academically, it definitely was not the right answer because I was definitely behind, and I just didn't have all the skills and knowledge that all of my friends and peers had. So it was definitely hard just to kind of get back into that whole, like, okay, this is what a school day is like, and this is what you have to do for homework, because I've just been out of that scene for so long. And it was hard to kind of get back my energy and be able to follow a schedule. It was hard for a long time. And I had some people that right when I got back from transplant, when we had AIM, which nowadays a lot of people
What
now
is
do
it?
not know what AIM is, but it's instant messenger.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so it was came back on that when I came home, and I remember a couple people messaged me, and one of the messages was, "Oh, I thought you were dead. I didn't know you were
Fuck.
alive."
Did somebody write that?
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Oh, yeah. So, and you have,
How the hell do you react to something like
well, the
that?
thing is like, you have to, like, looking back on it now, is that you're dealing with 12 and 13-year-olds.
Yeah.
And at that age, a lot of, like, they're just not socially appropriate or emotionally appropriate to a whole lot of situations. And unfortunately, for my situation, for a lot of people that have similar situations, it can go negative as well as positive. So I had a lot of positive feedback from being back home, but then I would get some of those messages and some of those like, ooh, but she's still sick, because I would still have to miss school for appointments and stuff. So all of a sudden I had that kind of going around in school,
Yeah.
and I knew it, and it kind of died down, but there was always still like, oh yeah, she was sick. And a lot of people also thought that I had cancer, which I didn't have cancer. So it was kind of like a lot. It was hard to kind of come back and kind of, I almost had to like retell certain people what had happened. And
But that is a situation which when you have something like Fanconi Anemia.
Yeah.
I know it's also very bad if you have cancer or
Oh,
leukemia
yes.
or anything else, but it's the same situation I think a lot of us are in, maybe especially us with a chronic disorder. I mean, you're not healed just because you got a BMT.
Right.
You're not. I mean, it's just a part of a long trip.
yeah,
It's a big part of it, definitely. But I mean, you come back and as we talked a little about earlier, everything should be fine. You are looking forward to getting home, but then you have to deal with more stuff. And I will get back to that a little later also. But I'm kind of curious, but if we round up those years, the school years, did you manage to get back in to the social life? And I mean, what did you actually get in there when you felt comfortable, and or was school just never the same afterwards?
So it's kind of weird because like elementary school, I was there, but I really wasn't there a lot because I would just go to the nurse's office and say, oh, I don't feel good, call my mom. So my mom would pick me up and I'd be fine, of course. But so I didn't really, like, elementary school, I don't really remember a lot. And middle school is a complete blur because middle school, it was 2 years after, it was the first year back to middle school. I was first year out of transplant. And then the second year, it was 2 years out of transplant. And high school, I guess I felt more comfortable in that setting and more confident. And I had like a good amount of friends to be able to like hang out with and sit with and enjoy like the weekends with. But I still never found that one group. It was almost like I was friendly with at least a couple people from like 10, 20 different groups. And
okay, yeah.
that's kind of how it was. But yeah, no, I think a lot of stuff changes once you have transplant. I think your whole mentality changes too about your outlook on life as well.
I want to make a small jump here.
Yeah, sure.
Not because I know there's so much to tell. When you talk about these stuff, I keep thinking back on my own time. But when you have something like Fanconi anemia, you talked a little earlier about losing some friends at an early age to the BMT, and you're kind of in a situation, even from a young age, where you have to deal with death. And I know for many people it's very uncomfortable to talk about, but how have you been able to manage that thought and still staying sane?
Yeah. So I think knowing that I have really supportive and loving parents, and I do have friends there for me that I've made, definitely comes into play when you do have these doubts. Dealing with it after transplant was really hard for me. I did become depressed when I went off to college because I really got like that, almost like another wake up call that I'm different. Because I was still going to doctor's appointments and I was kind of in that whole college world where I'm seeing all these kids really only care about doing the party scene and that's it. And I was almost jealous that was all that they were caring about, where me, like, I wanted to just only care about that, but I knew that I can't just care about that. I have to care about my health. I have to care about staying on top of everything. And I definitely became depressed, and I think I've always had anxiety just because of all the medical world that I've been in. And it was hard for a while. It landed me in some unhealthy relationships just because I was trying to always find the missing piece almost. And I finally kind of came to terms with knowing that I needed to start being healthy with relationships and healthy with myself. And I was able to talk more openly about it to my friends, and a lot of my friends knew that they could see that there was something wrong, but they didn't know how to really force it out of me. And I was also in denial about a lot of my feelings inside about death. And I was always thinking that, okay, well, now this is one of my friends and now she had passed away. And it was really, really hard when Amy, who is another FA person, and I grew up with Amy basically. And
Oh, you grew up. Okay, you knew her for that long back?
Yes, she was there when I was like 4.5, 5 maybe, I met her. So every summer, then on, I would see her. And I would talk to her even outside of Camp Sunshine. And when I was younger, when I was trying to keep it all a secret, even from the Camp Sunshine families for like a year, I told people that, oh no, I don't have FA, that's the other Amy. So we always had that little joke between us. And when she passed away, that really hit me hard. And it's almost like I'm really into birthdays because it's like, oh, I beat what the doctor said. And
oh yeah,
and like go.
It might sound strange to other people, but to be honest, people with Fanconi anemia, most have been told when they were very young, that they shouldn't expect to live long. I mean, we always heard that. Maybe I talked to Egil from Denmark. Actually, I visited him and his wife a few days ago. And we talked about it also because when he was like a teenager, when I think he was 14, when he got diagnosed, most people would say you will never turn 16.
Yeah.
And when he was 16, they were like, "Well, maybe you're lucky you can go to 20 because there's some new things we can do to stay safe." And now he's 45, 44.
It's crazy. He told my parents that I probably wouldn't live past like 7 or 11 even. And then it was almost like each age, like turning the sweet 16, that was another like, oh, I made it to 16, woohoo. Then it was like 21, I made it to 21. And now for me, I'm going to make it to 30. And it's really hard because in the back of my head, like anything can happen, and I try to stay positive, but I do have those thoughts of what happens if I go to my next appointment and something bad is happening within my counts, and that always scares me because I
understand why.
I don't want to have to leave anybody behind, because I feel like if I die, like I'm just leaving so much behind, and I'm leaving so much left unsaid, I guess, to like my loved ones. So it's scary, but I'm very okay with death. I've always talked about it with my grandmother when she was alive. But
that's a good thing, actually. Have somebody to talk about it with.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And now it's like a little bit harder just because I have a really loving boyfriend who I'm hoping to marry one day. And you kind of throw that one person into the mix of your medical world. And that kind of stirs around a lot of other emotions just about if something bad were to happen too. And
this is kind of the difficult thing about this, because you have some loved ones that will stay behind when you leave. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how you feel about it, but I know my time will come, and probably sooner than I would like it to. And it's kind of a strange concept to always have somewhere in your mind that you know that next appointment could be it. Yeah. Because usually I feel like I'm invincible. It won't happen to me. I mean, I'm 34 years past BMT, which is very unusual. So part of me is like, yeah, I will go to 70. Who cares? I don't care if I have FA. I'm invincible. Yeah. You know, I have this feeling. But at the same time, when I look at my wife, I can admit that I have evenings where I can't sleep, and I can lay there and I can look at her and be like, shit, I hope I will never have to leave you behind. How will you do if I suddenly get very sick and I will pass away quickly? Just as I've seen plenty of friends do with FA throughout the years. And it's a scary thought. Like, I think I've come to terms with the fact that I'm gonna die sooner than I wanted to. But at the same time, sometimes it's just impossible to keep the thoughts out of your mind. I don't know if it makes sense.
Oh, yeah. No, I absolutely agree with all of that. It's really hard for me because I also have that like little bit of feeling and that and thoughts that if I like marry Matt, who I love, and we end up having a family and something does happen, I don't want to put all of that on him, you know? Just because it is a lot. And
It is a lot, definitely. But he also chose to be by his side.
exactly. And it's hard because I almost like feel guilty because I know that something could possibly happen in the future. And because I know that, and I'm still allowing him to be like a part of it, and knowing that he's probably gonna have a lot of sad nights and stuff. And that's what, like, I think it's the guilt that I still want everything, but I know that it's gonna be a tough road at one point. And so it's hard, but I try not to think about it that much. It's always in the back of my head. But for the most part, doctors were telling me since I was 4.5 that I was not going to be alive for stages in my life. And already I've surpassed a lot of them.
So that's the positive things. The more and more of us actually keeps going for a long, long time. So I've mentioned that a few times online with some of the AFAs, that sometimes I feel like the last dinosaur, because I got my BMT in '84, in '85, and that's such a long time ago. And then I see kids who doesn't make it, and a part of me is like happy I'm going on, but there's also a lot of guilt.
Yeah.
To be honest, when I have been to Camp Sunshine only 1 year, I met some of the parents with small children.
Yeah.
And I can, when I meet up with grown-ups who have either cancer or Fanconi Anemia, some other really difficult stuff, when I lose some of them, it hurts. It hurts us like hell, but I can handle it because they're grown-ups. They have had the chance to live, at least live
Right.
some part of their life. But I'm not strong enough to go to Camp Sunshine again. We lost 2 of the kids in I think the next 6 to 8 months after.
Yeah.
And when you have been sitting with them and their parents, and I didn't know how to handle that. Especially because I live in the other part of the world. I can't just drop by. I can't just, I can't go to the funeral. There's a lot of things that is, I think it's very difficult when it's the young ones.
Yeah, no, it is. And even if I don't really know another FA child or adult, it still hits me because I do suffer from survivor's guilt because I got my transplant September 6, 2002. And a lot of other people started going through transplant during that time, and a lot of them did not have the good outcome. And then with Amy passing and Chris Bird passing, I was really close to them. And I do still kind of, like, I always, like, I know not to question, but that question, like, why me, has always been in the back of my head, just because of just knowing so many beautiful souls that I think should be here, and they're not.
But I think it's time we talk about something that's a little more happy. I know we have been talking about how the life have been up until now. We've been talking a little about death. But also, as the title say, let's talk a little about happiness.
Sure.
Because to me, that's a fundamental thing, that if you are to survive something like this, if you are to stay sane, you need to find your happy moments. So I'm kind of curious. You have been through a lot. You have lost a lot. And none of us know what the future brings. So what do you do? And how do you manage to stay happy, and where do you find your happiness?
So I find my happiness in just pretty much just like waking up every day and just knowing like, okay, I'm here today. That's a good thing. And then I think what you have to try to do is you have to try to not always think negative about the illness, because I've met a ton of amazing people, including you. And
thank you.
And without having that pain, having to go through all that shit and still have to go through shit, I wouldn't be able to have met all these amazing people. So I kind of think that through a lot. And I also, I'm in I have a few really amazing friends in my life right now that I just enjoy just going out for a drink and talking with them. And that's really happiness. My boyfriend, Matt, is amazing. He is always making sure that I'm happy and that I'm thinking positively. And he is just lights up my world, to be honest, and really makes me love that I'm still here, because sorry.
It's okay.
But I think having people in your life and just knowing that they're there for you is really good, and finding little outlooks. Like I use music and traveling. I love to travel to tropical places, and just the ocean just calms my soul. I feel at peace when I'm at the ocean.
So I totally agree with you. I mean, I hate having something like FA. I hate that I had cancer a few years ago, but throughout this journey, I've met so many wonderful people. And also, I know it shouldn't take something like this, but every moment counts.
Yes, absolutely.
Everybody should live by that, but I think as humans, sometimes we are kind of idiots. I mean, we have to come out in a very bad situation before we actually realize that we have to live in the moment. We have to cherish the people we have around us.
Right. And I think also I'm finding that a lot of people that are being diagnosed now, they're thinking that they have to be in a bubble to survive, and that's not the case. I want them to know, because I've been through it, that you can go out and get a job. You can go out to college if you want to do college, or if you want to take classes somewhere. You can do that. You can have a relationship. Like, I never in a million years, if you asked me a long time ago, I would not think that someone would be able to love me just because of my medical side of me. And that's not the case. And I think people need to realize that they can still do the normal thing. You have to figure out your limits are. And I believe in quality versus quantity. So.
And I agree with you. I've also seen a lot of people living in the bubble. Yeah. And I mean, most of the people who have been surviving for a long time, as you mentioned, they're taking an education, they have been out working. And I know a few people can't really work. They have a lot of issues all the time. But if you do have the chance, no matter what, I think it's important to live as normal a life you can. Not normal means, not that normal have to means boring, but you have to set some goals.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have to have some dreams you chase.
If you don't have any goals, then what is waking up every day worth to you is how I look at it.
I actually used it when I lost my first really, really close friend, a guy called Michael, to a BMT. He didn't have Fanconi Anemia, but my last conversation with him was actually telling him, I think you should go through with BMT, because he had been talking to his parent about it. I mean, look at me. Look at me. I'm doing good now. I'm doing way much better. And that was actually the last conversation I had with him before he died.
Oh,
And,
wow.
and to me, that was very difficult. In my teenage years, I kept thinking about that whole situation. Why did I say something stupid like that? I mean, I know as an adult it wouldn't have made a difference. It was something that happened in his family. But I have used it instead to, when I've been in doubt about if I should just not give up, but I've been through some depression too. But I mean, I use it as a kind of fuel. I mean, he'd never got the second chance. I got it. I got my second chance. Even with the cancer, you can argue that I got the third chance too. So if I had gotten these extra chances, I might as well use them to something positive. Because if I don't try to live good, if I don't try to be happy, then what's the point of having a third or second chance?
I agree with that very much. You just have to always, I feel like you just always have to remind yourself that right now you can do what you want, what you need to do. For right now, focus on what is the good stuff that you want to accomplish and try and succeed.
So now you talked about you use the ocean to find peace, music, your boyfriend. What else makes you happy?
Really spending time with a few of my good friends. They always are really good to kind of like, they can, if I'm feeling really sad or depressed, they're really good at making me feel happy and kind of pushing that all aside and bringing me back to life in the fact of everything's okay right now. Like everything's going to be okay. And I think with being able to talk it out with friends or my mom and dad or with Matt, it helps me a lot because I feel like a lot of times I just need to like say it. And then once I say it, it's almost like it's been released from my thoughts almost.
Yeah,
so I'm getting all that negativity just out of me.
And I agree with you. Music is perfect when you're down. It's a good thing too when you're in a bad mood, but music makes me happy too. I use it a lot of the time.
Oh, yeah.
It's like my main go-to thing.
Yes. No, I absolutely like music and it really calms me. It hypes me up. It covers all emotions I feel. Yeah.
Oh, and as you mentioned, vacations.
Yes, vacations you have to take. I think everybody needs to at least take a mini vacation because with dealing with everything and being able to kind of save up and know that like, oh, I'm going to get away from what we call the real world for a little bit is really good for your soul. And for me, it's just kind of laying on a beach with a drink in my hand, and that gives me peace, and that gives me time to kind of get everything negative out of my system. And finally just kind of feel at ease and like, okay, this is my life right now. This is what's happening. And we just got to keep moving forward on this roller coaster of life.
Definitely. I mean, there's still so many possibilities. For me, the one thing that is most important is I define my life. Fanconi Anemia does not define who I am.
Absolutely. I feel like if you let it define who you are, you're going to become depressed and you're going to put yourself in a bubble and you're not going to be happy at all. I think one of the main things is when you are dealt this card in life, you have to accept it and make the best of it, even though...
Exactly.
Like, I've dealt with a lot of shitty things, but I keep on trying and pushing along and making the best out of it.
You can also... I feel this way that I know that sooner or later, life will give me something to cry about. Life will bring me down, and it will hurt. So while I'm not in that specific situation, why should I use all my thoughts thinking about how wrong everything can go? I mean, I'd rather spend my time. I can deal with the shit when the shit hits the fan. I mean, I mean, why should I go waste my time thinking too much about it now? I mean, right now in my body, in my mind, even though I have a cold and I've been like sick for a long time just with cold and blah. But I can still go out. I can still go for good dinner. I can still go out and play with my son. I can spend time with my wife. I can call my friends. I can watch a good movie. I go to the cinemas, go to the theater. I can go on vacation. There's so many things I can do. So while I'm not in the middle of a lot of bullshit, and when I'm not at the hospital and I have to deal with those kind of things, I might as well just live life.
No, I agree with that a lot. And I think right now I nanny 2 little boys, and one of them I'm with literally like 11 to 12 hours a day, named Grayson. And just seeing him, because I've been with him since he was 7 months old and he's now a little over a year, it's just brought back that light and happiness. Just to be able to see like life is beautiful, even when you think it's fucked up.
It really is.
Yeah, well, no, you have to know that you can be happy living with this illness, and that you can be able to enjoy life and enjoy the little moments. I feel like it's the small things that really do count and really do make me smile and giggle, is when I just kind of catch little funny stuff. It just kind of, I always throw this quote out, and I live by this quote, the live, laugh, love, because you gotta keep living, you gotta keep laughing, and you can't ever stop loving.
Oh, yeah, that's beautiful. And actually, when me and my wife got married, we almost used that as a motto, or whatever you call. We had put small hearts all around all the tables where there was burnt some letters. Aww. But we are very happy foodies, so we write eat, love, laugh.
Oh, that's awesome.
That is just our take on it, because that's the main thing for us. If something is happening, let's go out and have a good dinner somewhere.
Yes, and that's like, I've been trying to get better with this, but I do not have I'm kind of bad with thinking the worst, and I'm getting a lot better at knowing, just because Matt will always kind of bring me back to earth and say, well, that's not happening right now. So why are you thinking that way? Because it's not in the cards for you right now. Or it might not even be in the cards for you. So I've been doing a lot better with that. And it does help to be able to have that other person to be able to kind of bring you back and say, well, it's not happening to you right now. It might not even happen to you at all. So why dwell on that?
I know that I've had one cancer, and there's a big possibility that I will get cancer again. That is just the name of the game.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know for sure. Maybe I'm going for the next 5 years without any troubles at all. So yeah, it's about where you keep your focus.
Exactly.
And try to get out of that frame, that mind frame that something will happen soon.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it will, but deal with it when it's there.
Exactly. That's what you just got to keep reminding yourself. And I have to keep reminding myself that same thing. I mean, I've had some oral cancer scares, and I just have to keep on reminding myself that right now I'm okay. And until something else changes, then we'll deal with it.
After I had mouth cancer 5 years ago, and after that I was scared shitless whenever I had an appointment with the head and neck doctors, because I was like, oh, what if they find something? It started being like a week before I had to go there. I mean, I couldn't sleep at night. I was so nervous. But now it's all right. It's like maybe 2 hours before I go out the door, I start to think about it. And that's all right. I mean, who cares? It's one every 6 months.
No, I think a lot of us feel that way just because of that situation. And I don't think I've ever gone a day without it being in the back of my mind of when is the ball gonna drop, basically.
And yes, I agree with you, Amy. You never know when this ball's going to drop, so you don't know when you have to deal with this new situation. But, we just got to tackle it when we get to there. There's not much else we can do. I think if we keep thinking about when is the ball going to drop, we're going to go insane. But on the other hand, it's difficult not to think about it every now and then. I don't know if you feel me.
No, it's definitely always in the back of my head, but you just have to always try to know that it is there, but it doesn't have to take over your whole entire thought process of every second of every day.
Agree. Now, I have a small question for you. It's not really a small question, but now I'm thinking about the people around us, like my brothers, my parents, your brother, your family and friends. Mm-hmm. If you could give a good advice to people who are in family and friends of people who suffer from Fanconi anemia or cancer or any other of these very, very, you could say, heart disease or difficult diseases to deal with. So if you could give an advice to these people about approaching you and approaching us, what would that be?
I think really all that people that I know that want to see how I'm doing is really just sending a message either through text or leaving a message on my phone or just a simple card, just kind of reaching out saying that, hey, I'm thinking of you. If you ever want to talk, I'm here to listen. I think really that's all that is really needed to just start with the conversation to get going. I think a lot of times people get nervous and scared of, oh no, I don't know what to say, or I don't want to say the wrong thing. And I think that they need to know that they really can't say anything that's wrong, that them just saying hi to us is the best thing. And it opens that door for communication. And even if they just want to talk about their life, that's fine too, because a lot of the times I will kind of like to live through my friends per se. And when I'm feeling down about anything in life, to hear them succeed in their happy stories, that makes me happy. So
yeah,
really,
I agree. Yeah, definitely. It can give you a lot of energy, actually, because sometimes when you're in a situation where you have to think about, you go to a lot of checkups, you have to deal with a lot of hard stuff. Sometimes to hear about normal life, let's call it that, that is actually wonderful. I want to hear about you going to a party and having fun, or your son doing good at soccer, or whatever it is. I want to hear those stories because it brings me something positive and something different to think about.
Exactly, and it keeps you grounded because you have to learn, as someone who's living with in terminal illness, is that you have to make that divide between your medical life and your personal life. You can't let one of them overpower the other, or else you're going to go crazy.
Oh, yeah.
So it's really good to kind of, when you're getting really sad or get in that depressive state about something medical, it helps to pull you back into real life and know that, okay, well, there's this other side to me that's going really well, or something that I can control at this very moment. So I think that's really a great thing to be able to have friends and family to kind of help ground you when you need to be.
Yeah, to ground you, but also for me personally. Oh, there was a lot of echo there. Okay, for me personally, I just enjoyed to, when I had cancer, when I got my mouth cancer, there was friends that I thought I was close to that didn't even talk to me, and I didn't hear anything from them for more than a year. And that kind of disappointed me, because I thought we were close. On the other hand, I used to make music and stuff like that when I was younger, and I had actually an old friend from back then who I hadn't been talking to for 10 years, who got in contact with me. It was like, man, I read this. How you doing? How you holding up? And we had some really, really good conversations. So I mean, for those who are close, as you said, just reach out, even if you don't know what to say. You can't say anything wrong. If you ring my doorbell, or you send me a text message, or you go on FaceTime and you be like, hey, how you holding up? That's a gift. I mean, I enjoy that no matter what.
Oh, same here, very much.
So that is at least one advice I also want to give to people and relatives, to people who suffer from something like this. But also, if we can, just by the end of the hour, I keep putting in one last question.
No, that's fine.
But if you think about people who are just getting a diagnosis now, as I mentioned, it could be Fanconi Anemia or something else, who suddenly have to change their life. They're coming in, and I know no matter what I say, no matter what you say, it's always a shock when you sit there and you have to listen to the doctors try to tell you, don't go Google this, blah, 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 whatever they always say. I mean,
oh, yeah.
By the way, I hate that one. Why? How come the doctors always say that? You have cancer, or you have Fanconi Anemia, don't go Google it. It's like... Well,
the pictures in what they post on Google is like the worst of the worst that could possibly happen. So at least from what I noticed when I did Google FA, it only gives you like a little percentage of what some of the patients that have FA are like or have to deal with. So I think that's why the doctors say that, because it does get your mind going, oh my gosh.
I don't think you're right about that, but if I say to you, don't think about a red elephant, you will obviously think about red elephant to understand what I'm talking about. So I don't know why I hear from everybody that it's almost the first thing the doctors say, don't Google it. And the first thing people will say, oh, so he's telling me I shouldn't Google it. What will happen if I Google it? I have to Google it. I mean, they really have to learn that little lesson.
Oh, yeah.
No, but some kind of advice. If you're new to something like this, you just got a diagnosis and you have to try to handle that. Do you have any good advice? I mean, it's difficult because you had this most of your life, but I just thought that maybe you had a few good advices to people in that situation.
Yes, I think some advice that I would give is to keep on living and keep on living life to the fullest. I know that it's very cliche to say, but in all reality is that you get that shock of, oh my goodness, this is now going to change my life forever, which yes, it will, but it doesn't have to be all negative. You got to always try and find the positiveness every single day. And also, don't let this disease control you. You control the disease, because if you let the disease and the diagnosis control your whole entire outlook on life, you're going to become depressed and your mental health is going to go downhill, and it's not going to be good for you or for anybody who is around you. And I think also to make sure to be honest with your feelings to yourself, but not only to yourself, but to your friends and your family, because as much as they love you and they want to support you, they still need that honesty from you, or else anything that they say to you is going to go in one ear and out the other. And if you are in a relationship with someone, or you're just starting a new loving relationship, you don't need to bombard them with everything at first. I think at least for me, what I've done is I've kind of, the time will hit you when you realize, okay, I think I should talk about my illness to this person who I want to share my life with. And for me, I've told Matt the generalization of having FA, but I've also not told him like the gazillion things that could happen, because those are things that could happen or could not happen to me. So I think really just sticking to what the disease is doing for you currently is really a big part of that honesty to communicate with people that you love, because you don't need to always be thinking of everything that could possibly happen. Just be honest with what is happening to you now and try and focus on everything that you can do to make sure that you're staying on top of your doctor appointments and you're staying on top of your health, but also find the time to have fun, to enjoy the little moments every day.
I mean, they're still there. Sometimes we forget to actually look at them. I mean, even if I'm an old school gamer. I've been doing that for my whole life, and people have been, oh, you have a serious illness. Why are you wasting time doing that? Because it's a getaway and it makes me laugh. I mean, we all need to find some things in our normal day lives that keeps our focus away from these things. I don't care if you're good at, if you like reading books or going out and have a run, or you game, or you go play tennis, or like to knit, whatever you do. It's just important to have something that makes you feel good, makes you laugh, go to a good movie. Just do something that is normal and fun to you. Because I think it will drive anybody nuts and totally insane if all they did was sit there looking at the books and what could happen to me. I mean, hot damn, that would drive anybody mad.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And I mean, I'm so thankful to having a great family support system. And also, I'm very grateful for having Matt in my life, who's really great at making sure that I'm happy and that I keep staying positive. And one of my really good friends, Jill, she's always there for me. And I think also maintaining your friendships with people, as hard as it may be at certain times, you really just need to keep on going out with your friends and not trying to just be by yourself, because I think that really can turn you upside down, and that's not a good place to be. And just also, definitely, I think a lot of people need to remember to take care of their mental health too, because that's a whole other component of having a disease.
Oh yeah, you need to be on top of that too. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's like 70% of the battle, I think. The mentality you have when you go into stuff like this.
Oh, I agree.
So, Amy, it has been wonderful to have you in this. This is going to be the very first episode. So I'm very, very excited to hear what will people think. Do they like it? But no matter what, I enjoyed so much talking to you about these things.
Oh, yes, I enjoyed it too very much. Thank you.
And I do hope that we maybe have the chance somewhere down the line to get back to you and see how you're doing. And yeah, I would personally love that. So be able to do that every now and then.
Yes, I'm in, definitely.
Do you have anything you want to say before we stop? Any last advice or anything?
I think my last advice is to just live each day with positiveness and laughter and love. And I think if you can do that, you're on a really good path.
That is a very, very good advice. I like that.
Thank you.
Stay positive. Thank you so much. And to the listeners, thank you for listening this time around. It has been a pleasure having you here. Hopefully, we will be back with a new episode next week, and we will get the first 3 episodes up, and after that, it will be every 14th day there will be a new episode. So I hope you enjoyed, hope you will keep listening, and thank you so much. Thank you for listening to tonight's episode of Life, Death and Happiness. If you like this, please do us a big favour and subscribe to us on iTunes, Overcast, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you're listening to this podcast from. If you also give us a good rating, that will be much appreciated. You can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter and help us spread the word through there. My name is Daniel. I'm signing off. Thank you so much for listening.